Do-do-do-do-do. Live from New York. How do we say live from New York?
Coming to you live on the Government Access Channel from Mario Bagnoni Chambers in beautiful downtown Erie. It's the Taxpayers Hotline Show with your hosts, Kaz Kwiatkowski and John Steiner.
Well, John, DJ never left us.
You know, DJ, his voice just rings permanently throughout.
We got to get him to do like live from Erie.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Hey, here's Johnny.
He did a good job on that. I like the
Yes, he did.
voiceover. How are you doing, Kaz?
It's been a good week.
Yeah, you recovered from yesterday's. I see you got your Browns shirt on.
Well,
today.
I wish I was about 10 years younger.
Don't we all?
Huh?
Don't we all?
Well, no. I would call my good friend Chris Masevsky from Bill's Bakery,
Okay.
and he and I would take a little car ride west.
Yeah.
They're having open tryouts today for kickers.
You know, I think you should. I think you still could make the team.
Well, I can't kick the 45-yarders no more.
Well, that's okay. Neither can they.
Well, no. Yeah, but they're looking for someone, you know. When I was younger, I gave it a shot one time, but
I posted a picture on Facebook and Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump is trying out for the Browns. So I mean that was I knew.
It only him though. There was another kicker that blew it yesterday.
Oh, for the Vikings too.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you think about it, it's a terrible position you're in. Okay, you don't play the whole game usually.
Yeah, you know, we were sitting there and we're saying, how are the Browns going to find a way to lose this one too? Every game, every week, it's like a whole new.
Well, I had Sirius, and I was listening to it on the radio as I was doing my shopping with my wife.
Okay.
And they were going nuts on there, like, you know.
Were they?
Oh yeah, they were crazy, and I'm going. But he left in the last 2 weeks, 11 points on the board. Now you can't say you're going to get them all, okay?
Right.
But you know,
technically they should be 2-0.
I mean, you can make mulligans for field goals, but extra points.
Yeah, I mean,
you shouldn't miss much more than one of those a year.
No.
2 in a game, you know.
I mean, and then last week against Pittsburgh, he blew it too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 2 wins that they should have had, and just over the basic, just kicking it. I mean, it wasn't even like weather; it was like in a dome.
As a ex-kicker, it's in his head now because he was wide left, wide right.
Yeah, right.
He's all over the place. He's just.
Yeah, I mean, is he a rookie or is he like?
No, I think it's his second year. They drafted him number 7.
Oh, really?
A couple of years ago.
Oh, they drafted him?
Yeah, he was a big-time kicker out of Southwest, somewhere, Arizona or something.
Oh, really?
But
that's too
he
bad.
was in a tough battle this year with some kid.
Oh, were they?
And it was a last-minute decision to keep him.
It's just sad that they get so close to winning. You know, personally, I'm not a Browns fan, but
I just got done from cheering.
went there.
I was sitting in my seat when he missed it.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing my wife stopped me.
Yeah. You ready to?
I would have had no TV left.
Now you ready to throw it out the window?
I was going to throw something at it, but why blame the TV, you know?
Your wife will kick your butt. You ruin your TV.
Oh, yeah.
You'll be in big trouble. But the Indians clinched.
Yes, they did.
So it wasn't that bad this weekend. It was,
Hey, you know, the nice part, I was listening to the Indians game, and they were mentioning Erie.
were they?
Yeah, because the Detroit pitchers that were up there,
Okay, yeah.
they brought a lot of their young kids up.
From Erie, they brought them up.
Yeah, they some of them got their clock cleaned a little bit, but you know what?
big shocker there.
They're young kids, you know.
Yeah, I remember I went to an event at Jariet Park, and some of the Seawolves kids were walking around. And when you're up next, they're teenagers. They're like babies.
But you know what? Like when
With
some
the
of them,
Otters.
some of them come out of there, their arms are about as lively as they're going to get.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them, people, the Seawolves, they're a double-A team. So what people don't realize is a lot of, you have single A, double A, triple A. A lot of them, the really super stud prospects, go right from double A to the majors.
Well, that's because Double A is the first one that the first time you don't have multiple teams.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
it's the first time you take all the kids from A ball
Right.
and then
Well, we had, Justin Verlander went straight from here to the bigs. We had that Joel Zamaya who had elbow
and you had
problems.
that one kid, the center fielder.
Granderson.
Yeah.
We had, there was a couple other ones too. Curtis Granderson was another good one. And we had,
In Cleveland over the years, they took a lot of guys out of Akron.
well, yeah, Akron, I think Lindor and a couple of them came right out of Akron. People don't realize, that They don't even really go to a lot of people don't even attend the Seawolves games, but that's where you want to see these guys for cheap.
You know, I always said for Erie, for a town its size, probably has too much.
You think?
Oh, yeah, think about it. You compare it to any town you want our size. We have a functioning zoo that's actually
Yeah.
not a petting zoo.
Yeah, it's a nice
Okay,
zoo.
you have opera, ballet, ongoing philharmonic.
Right.
You have
You have a double A baseball
you have
team.
Double-A baseball, an NBA D-League
You have a
team,
D-League
which we may lose through no fault of our own.
Yeah, I mean, you
But
get a
then
lot-
you got, one time you had multiple football semi-pros.
Yeah.
Not to mention the college and the high schools. You got
you got the Erie
hockey.
Hunters. I mean, a lot of
You got college hockey on a male and female level at Division One.
we don't really have any. We have D3, D2 college football. We don't have any D1 college football.
No, and that'd be, that's kind of tough, but.
But considering we have less than 100,000 people,
Well, that has nothing really to do with it, but, and I'll tell you why. I was in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, smaller than Erie, but they got the University of Southern Miss. That's a Division One AA, I think.
Oh, is it
A little bit less than the Michigans and the Notre Dames.
right,
But still, they play Tulane and Army and stuff like that.
right,
But it's all me because, well, look at State College. State College is smaller than Erie.
yeah, right,
That's where they put the college,
yeah. Well, that was centrally located, correct? Since State College is like right in the middle of the state.
Oh, yeah, and, you got, here we go. Go ahead, caller.
Hey, Cats.
Yeah,
I was watching that on TV about the electric cars.
the which one?
The electric cars.
The electric cars.
Oh, yeah.
They had something up.
Yeah, but
I
I
missed
was going to
that.
ask you, what does it cost them to charge up their cars, though? They come out with electric cars.
You mean regular people's car, is that what they're talking about, the,
What they had was like an electric car expo up by, I think it's the Ambassador. So people, it was like an electric car show.
I think once they get the bugs worked out of them, I think you'll see people using them.
Well, I think one of the problems is they're so expensive to purchase from the get-go.
Yeah, that's what, so once they solve that problem. When you're in Europe, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, you'd be amazed. When I was in Europe, I was surprised. They had all kinds of gasoline stations.
Yeah, they got them here. They were showing them here that they could charge up cars, but how long will it? If you're traveling down the highway
Yeah.
and you were to go to here, like say here to Pittsburgh, could you go a round trip
Well, I think,
on a single charge?
well, even if you don't, I think they're hybrids, aren't they, John? Don't they have some with fuel in them too?
I think there's mixed. You can have them mixed.
Yeah, there's some that's what you'd have to do. I think, I'm not sure, I'll have to ask somebody about that, but I think going
But they
to,
didn't say they were hybrid.
well, going to Pittsburgh isn't probably a problem. It's like, if you were going to Chicago now, you'd probably have to think about it.
Yeah.
But I think the hybrid cars have a mix of fuel and electric, so that if you can either use either one. I think it switches to electric when you get on the open road or something, to ease up the fuel consumption. But if you ever been up to the Ambassador, you ever been up there?
No.
The Ambassador, I believe it's the Ambassador, they have charging stations in the back in the parking lot.
Oh, where at?
And some of these hotels now are doing that because they have visitors that come in, and some cities this is probably something we're gonna have to do in the city of Erie.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to have like charging stations downtown.
Yeah, well, they were showing it. I was watching that on TV 24 about the electric cars.
I'm just reading up on it a little bit.
Yeah.
It says here you can get anywhere between, depending on the size of the vehicle, anywhere between 100 and 400 miles on a charge.
That could take you almost to Chicago.
Yeah, it could take you to, Pittsburgh and back.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah.
And I think they, like I said,
They came out with the electric car lead.
well, you'll watch that some of the bigger cities have done it already. They're putting these charging stations where it's like a parking meter. You pay for the charge. And some of the hotels are doing it for, I don't know if they charge their visitors, but if you go up to some of them on Peachtree, you'll see the stations in the back, you know.
Yeah.
It says,
Yeah, 'cause, but that would be nice, you know, like if they came out with, like I asked the guy on the bus driver, I said if they would ever come out with electric buses. And he said no, because they run them for 10, 12 hours a day.
You know what he forgets, though?
Throughout the city and out to the Milkwick Wall.
You know what he forgets?
So, yeah, you probably will never see the electric buses.
You know,
But they do have propane buses.
here's what it says about how long it takes to charge a car.
how long?
It takes, at home, if you did it at home,
Yeah.
it takes about 8 hours, between 6 and 8 hours. But if you go to the rapid charging points,
Yeah.
it takes about 30 minutes.
So
And
you could do that overnight when
Yeah.
you're staying in a hotel.
and if you could fill up your car
I
and
just...
$2.64.
And then I mentioned it to you about it. That's all.
Okay,
Thanks
no
for
problem.
calling.
Bye. Bye.
You know, it's interesting. They used to have electric buses. When I used to go to Cleveland as a kid, Pittsburgh had them too.
Electric buses?
Well, they had the cables overhead.
Oh, they still do.
Yeah,
From
very
the
rare, though.
From the airport to downtown. Or is that it's like a troll? Yeah.
The ones in downtown Pittsburgh and Cleveland, they got rid of those.
They did?
Oh, you used to have the wires right.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if they got them like that in Minnesota, you know, on the tram line there
Yeah.
in Minneapolis. But I mean, they still use it. But years ago, they actually had the regular, you know, buses would do it, and they had tracks sometimes, you know. So they get, but I would never say they would never have buses, you know, like that.
A lot of them have the monorails and the above-ground subway
Yeah.
type system.
You might see electric buses come back someday. I mean, once they get the technology worked out.
Well, the tech, you know, but then you're fighting with a lot of, you know, industry and a lot of
Oh, look, the fuel.
bureaucratic bullcrap.
Look, Sunoco's not going to be happy.
No, none of these guys are, and they're going to dump money into anybody who fights it. So, I mean, it's unfortunate, but it seems like our environment is,
You go to-
especially this day and age,
You
the
go to
last
Europe
thing that
and you'd be
anybody cares
surprised,
about.
John. They got a hodgepodge of, you know, they got natural fuel, ethyl. They got, you know, everything.
Whenever I look online and you see videos or pictures of people driving in Europe, you know, they all have small cars.
Yeah, they do.
You know, they all got these little cars where we're SUV gas guzzling slobs.
They even had these. What's that big car that everybody wants to buy? And they had a little version of it. It's not available in America though. Mercedes-Benz.
Oh, really?
They had a little Mercedes-Benz, but
Yeah.
it's not available here though. You
No,
know.
it seems like, you know, everybody else in the world gets the idea and gets it right that we need to be environmentally sound.
There you go. Go ahead, caller.
I got a question for you. We'll start out slow.
So you have to. We can take multiple questions. We're okay.
Oh, all right. First of all, we need a new kicker too. The Giants and the Steelers.
Boy, I tell you, if ever there was an opening for a job, huh?
Really?
You know.
Take your kids out there and practice.
They sit and twiddle their thumbs too long, and when it's time to do, they overreact.
I think you're right. You know, John, when you and I were young, the kickers were guys like Summerall or Groza that they played in the game, you know, right?
They played and they were on their toes. But I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
You're going to have an ordinance up for first reading.
Which one? I'm never sure what they got planned.
Well,
Council's the last one to know anything. So which one's this one?
that's well, you know who you got to get after then, don't you?
I've been
Get after
trying.
Our little girl Roby. This is a gun preventive ordinance.
A what?
It's an ordinance appropriating a sum
Yeah.
I'll round it off, $150,000 unappropriated money for pro-gun violence reduction grant. How are you going to get and use $150,000 to reduce gun violence?
Well, I think what they're doing is, let me check it out, John. They're
They're
probably,
probably pumping it.
they're probably applying for it.
Yeah, probably the unified area or,
Yeah,
For
so,
a reduction grant from unappropriated and unanticipated revenue.
which means that if we get it,
Yeah, that's where it would be taken out.
yeah, but you know, when they made their prospectus to get it, they would have had to give a reason and how they were gonna use it. So, you know, I'm sure I have to see who applied for it. Sometimes it's, the police department or, you know, through the DA's office. Let me check it out, okay, John?
The council file number is 15,645.
I'm just going on now, so,
Okay.
but go ahead.
But, you know, just wondered. You know, I see where Mercier is opening up their new building. You know, I was going by Briggs, and I'm looking at all these houses.
Yeah.
How are they into the non-taxable bracket when Mercyhurst is charging rent and making money off these kids?
Well, I'll give you an example. The football field that Prep built was tax exempt too. And it's weird how the law applies. And I bet you if you look at Mercier's, not only are their athletic facilities tax exempt on campus, but they justify the buildings too. And it's, John, we fought it, but it's a Commonwealth law. And when you go over there to the courthouse where the appeals board is, that's what happens, you know. And I don't agree with it. I really don't, because that's a subsidiary part of college, and they're making money off that portion.
Well, they're making money off the parking lot down on the corner of 38th Street, too.
Well, I had somebody look into it. I looked into it before, and I'm looking into it again, and I want them to find out. They claim that the land belongs to, this we know, it belongs to Keystone.
True.
Okay, so Keystone is letting them use it, to my knowledge. That's what the last time I checked into it. But they claim that the kids are not paying for it. Now, that's an interesting question. I don't know the answer.
Is that called perjury?
Well, it could be, but you got to find someone to squeal and say that they're charging them.
Well,
You
they're
know.
putting all those little parking tags on their mirrors.
Well, that could just be justifying it. If they're not charging them,
Yeah, that justifies them to park there.
right? Because the way the ordinance reads, and we do have, you know, we've been doing a pretty good job closing some loopholes. We do get, by the way, somebody asked me about the parking ramp by the hotels. We are collecting the parking tax on those vehicles. So the problem's going to be, we have to find out whether, if they lie, and we find out, then we can collect on the portion that they're charging them.
Well, maybe I'll call them up and tell them I want to go to school and how much does the parking cost for my...
Yeah, don't do it for a while, John. They're probably listening.
Yeah, I get you.
But I agree with you, John. It's,
You know, there's a lot of money out there to be had if the people would be honest.
well, I said before, and I'm sticking by my comments that before I vote for $1 tax increase, I want to make sure that we're taking care of all the fees. And one thing about fees, they affect local people.
You can't do anything, it just increases everything.
Well, even though some fees affect our local people, a lot of fees are paid by people that don't live here.
Well, true.
And when we got parking fines that are unpaid and all that, that bothers me. It really does.
Well, it's just like your water, your sewage collection. They're locked in for 10 years. Well, I'd like to get locked in for 10 years on a price.
Yeah. Well, who's locked in for 10 years?
County, the outlying county, they're locked in.
Well, that's the unfortunate deal we made when we, years ago, when we gave up control.
you know, why, I don't understand
But
these
there was
authorities.
any sunset provisions in those agreements.
Do we have any way to,
Actually, they should be redone every other year.
Cass, can we audit an authority? Can the city controller audit an authority?
Sure, you can audit them. First of all, they have to be audited independently.
Independently?
Yeah, in other words, all the authorities, you there, John?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah, all the authorities, and we get copies of it. We get copies of the EMTA, the Parking Authority, anybody we're responsible for.
Yeah.
And they have to submit to council, their salary structures and all that, and the audit reports come here, they're available. They usually go up to finance. When I was controller, I asked for them too, and council can get a copy if they so desire.
Yeah.
But, by ordinance, it was set up that the finance department, usually the controller, got a copy. And there is a provision, when I was a controller, that said you can audit any portion that pertains to the money you have given them.
Okay.
So in other words, they're going to be audited in general from funds they receive from the outlying townships by an independent auditor. And that report will be available.
Who does the auditing?
It could be anybody,
From Erie?
it could be anywhere. Anybody you hire, the authority would hire them.
And they probably hired Joe Maloney.
Well, yeah, but here's what you got to remember. If an auditor lies, okay, if an auditor lies and, they're putting their reputation on the line, and I've seen audit reports where they don't lie. They'll tell you straight out, you get a pre-audit report, you're not doing things right, here's what you got to correct. So, audit firms are a little careful now about, because what happened a few years ago when they found a few of them not doing their job. So the auditors are out there, and remember, when you sign your name to that, okay, if you lie, it's not going to be just a government body that gets in trouble. You're going to get in trouble.
I thought authorities were supposed to be biased of political influence.
Well, they are technically, John, but
I don't like this last deal when Dahlkemper and Schember
well, yeah.
told the E-board to resign.
Well, this is why council looks at it like,
And
okay.
they'll do the selections.
You know what, John? This is why I don't like what happened. It happened 2 years ago. Technically, the reason why, and you do it under Commonwealth law, they give you there are laws set up in place where communities can form authorities under state law. You follow me, John?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Both
I
of
follow
you.
you.
Okay, both of you. So just so you know how it works. And they're set up and authorized by the state government. When you do that, the whole purpose is that you are still liable for them financially. But what you allow them to do is to go out there and make tough decisions
Run the show.
and run the show free of politics. Now, is that perfectly true? No, you know that, John, because who appoints them? We do. But I will say that if you get an authority and you have some people that are not going to, put up with the politics, well, they're going to probably be replaced, but still there is an honesty factor there. And I think what they're doing right now is wrong because I can't speak for county council, but the couple of people I talked to, it's the same problem we have. We haven't been told anything or any reason why they're being disbanded, why they were asked to resign. All we're being told is they're handing it, and that's the two executives. And that's not the way it's supposed to work.
Well,
If they're independent, John, okay, then look, their terms are not expired. If they want to step down voluntarily, that's one thing, but to be asked to step down with a gun basically in your back, that looks like politics from the start.
All you need is 4 nays.
That's right, and you know what?
You got 2 of them, right?
I'm not, look, as far as I'm concerned, they've done their job at the MTA. If you got a little problem with them, that's up to the board. And if you don't like the board, then you know what? When it comes time to replace them, that's the prerogative of the governing bodies.
Yeah, I give my opinion on the one resigning. I told him not to.
Well, you know what? It's wrong because, you're supposed to be there. When I pick somebody that I think I want to put on a board, I don't tell them what to do, but I kind of know.
If he's going to last.
Well, I want to know if they really like the job and they bring some to that. Because you know what? I'm not there at the meetings. I don't know what the conversation was between the new director and the school board and all that. And you know what? That should be a board issue.
True.
And if they have a problem with the director, that's why you hire, you elected him. If you want to take it over, then take it over. Bring it back and have all the blatant politics now
Taking
involved.
over the buses, there's no way in hell they're going to be able to do it. because all these new bus drivers got to have CDL licenses. They all have to be vetted.
Yeah.
And then you need all the mechanics to work on all this stuff.
Well, what I'm worried about, John, the paper accuses us of this is about power. No, it's not about power. First of all, I don't even get a vote. I don't even get a vote. It's the mayor with our concurrence.
Right.
Okay, but here's the thing. I think it's not about power as much as it is about representation. If I give this up as a member of council, and you come up to me and you ask me a question, you go, how, my mother can't get from point A to point B, right?
True.
And you say, what can you do about it? And I got to sit there and believably tell you nothing. Because I gave away my right to have representation.
I don't understand. I mean, an authority, I get why we have them.
Yeah, because
But-
you know what, John, we wouldn't, back way years ago, and this John on the phone remembers it, we did stupid things. We had guys, people that were afraid to raise the rates, even when they knew they had to.
I mean, an authority gets created so that there's a line between the political and, and.
Hypothetically,
Yeah, I mean, they get to, borrow money, et cetera, but it's getting to the point, the taxpayers have no say-so, and the people on this dais and the mayor and all the elected officials have no say in what these authorities do, where they spend their money, the rates that they charge, and they have nobody to answer to.
Well, some of them have to come, like the parking authority, they have to get our concurrence on a lot of things, okay?
What about the water authority? Do that?
But that water authority's a weird animal.
Okay, what about the area
But sewers
events?
come before us.
No authority.
They come before us, They have to make a case before we float a bond issue.
What about
Even-
convention centers?
Even like the other day, the parking authority they're talking about floating a bond issue, and they do a good job. I'm gonna tell you straight out, they've never asked for a dime from the city. In fact, they've given us money back on 2 occasions.
Parking authority?
Yes.
Yeah, I know they do.
And so when they come to us and they say, we got to make repairs, they got elevators that are going down, ramps that need attention, but they still have to get us to sign off because we're a co-signer in a way, okay?
What about the convention center authority?
That's more of a county one than a city.
Give me just a 30-second, how
Yeah.
does the Bayfront become a county property when it's in city
Not the,
limits?
but the Port Authority runs the Bayfront. That's a state authorized attorney. That's why, if you look at the Port Authority, most of the appointments are either the governor, the state,
Yeah.
the mayor, or somebody else. It's not like a regular authority. That was a special deal way back. Port authorities were different. But outside of that, you're right. The Civic Center has grabbed, pretty much the only thing they've grabbed is the GAF property and around there.
Convention center authority?
Yeah.
And they got that property from the Port Authority?
No, I think it was, that's convoluted. I can't remember.
But within the city limits.
Yeah, it was, but so was the Port Authority, but
Well, how did that,
the Port Authority can't do nothing down there. The only thing we can make sure is that whatever they build needs our concurrence as to height and everything.
yeah, I mean, but that's really the only.
You're still there, right, John?
Yeah, I have one more quick question on somebody else.
Yeah, we'll come back and answer your question. Go ahead.
How could the mayor get this all year round pickup, and where did he get the money to do this?
Well, it's,
East side, west side, north side, all around the clock. Did council have any say in this, or this is just a?
well, we voted to give it a shot and see what the financial outcome of it is.
Well, in other words, it's an executive deal.
Well, he suggested it to us. Look, I told the old mayor, I thought, when Joe One was there, okay?
Joe won.
Well, that's why I don't know how to call him, but when Joe Sinnott was there, right?
Okay.
One of the biggest complaints we got was right after we got done with our spring cleanup, and you know this to be a fact, John, right?
True.
2 weeks later, the kids are throwing their shit out, throwing their crap out from college, right? And there we go, now we got a whole nother mess to deal with. So I don't think his idea was bad, but council wants to see how it works out.
The last 10 years.
Well, because, but here's what somebody brought up to me, and I didn't think about this, but one advantage we had when we had the 4-week cleanup was that the
All the trucks now that were ready, they weren't making hit and misses.
well, the scavengers were ready too. The guys that did a good job,
I remember when they first brought, man, it was like a war zone. It looked like, oh my
Well,
God.
remember, now the guys that, well, you know the dealers, John?
Yeah.
They ride around and, it's not a bad idea. One day I put out a door, and that's all I could put out legally. They picked it up, so I went down in the basement, I brought something else up.
I remember.
Before the day was up, I had all my metal cleaned out.
They were taking the metals, the
Yeah.
aluminum, the.
And that's okay, I don't care,
No, that's fine. I remember
But
when they,
you weren't allowed to. You'd be processed.
But I think, what we don't know is like, that 4 week we had the budget, based on a lot of volume.
Last 4 weeks, the people paid for that and didn't realize it when they, what was it, $10 or $15 additional for that spring cleanup?
Well, it was added, into your bill, but, well,
No, that was before.
well, yeah, before. Well, we'll see what happens, he's got to make a case to us, and
I mean, you
we'll
guys
see
aren't-
during budget.
you guys aren't doing the major pickups anymore. You know how you did the.
I don't know what their plans are.
You
That's
just
what-
do, I mean, can't, when they just spread that budget money throughout the year?
You would think they would, but I don't know if they're still going to do a pickup besides that. I think the problem they had was, and if you live around Erie, John and I know this to be a fact, and you do too. There are people that, for whatever reason, acquire stuff or don't put it out, and then all of a sudden, in the middle of the year, you've seen the couches and everything else.
Yeah.
And it was a mess about whether you could identify who the owner was.
But we'll get off, and if it's slow, I'll call back.
Well, no, you did a good job, John. I'll check on that for you. And
Alrighty.
well, we're going to check, see how much that costs us.
I mean, the authorities, I mean, I don't know. The EMTA thing with the whole school district, trying to jerk them around. I mean, literally right before school, I mean, what was it, like a month and a half?
Yeah,
And they expect them to set up a whole transit system in a month and a half from scratch
we
with no
don't know.
money?
Well, we don't know is whether this was talked about before either. We only know what the paper tells us. And you know what?
I know about the paper.
And you know what? Being in meetings, there's a lot of things that we talk about that, over the course of a year that they don't cover.
Now, they cover what they want to cover. They spin
And
it
we
out.
don't know if
They don't even know half the stuff they're talking about.
They may have well talked to someone already about, this.
You and I talk about stuff that shows up in the newspaper like 2 weeks later. I mean, that's how, there's a lot of times where we've talked about things that, it's a breaking story in the Erie town. Oh, really? We talked about that a month ago.
Yeah.
And half the stuff, I don't know if it's right, but hey, they got to sell papers.
Yeah, see what this,
Somehow.
what this is with John. Oh, go ahead, I'll talk to you.
No, go ahead.
No, I agree with you because, one of the things I always hate about, when you tell the media, you try to explain to them that it's not always, it's a course of a lot of things have been talked about. It's like, all of a sudden when the parking meters came in, and I don't care who gets credit, I really don't. But we were talking with the parking authority 4 years ago. When I was liaison, I talked to them, and we put the ball in motion. We had them come to council. This was a process where we were working out all the details. You just can't go in there and do something like that in 2 minutes. So there was a process. They looked at their end, we looked at our end. We checked whether we could, to make this thing work, we had to give up some revenue, and like I said, the authority's been good to us over the years in financing different projects. They took out the Transitway Mall. They were responsible for getting the baseball park built with matching funds. And when you look at all that, so it was, it was a 4-year process, but they make it look like, wow, it happened. And they don't even know, they have no idea.
I think the agreements that the city has made with these authorities are too long.
Or to what?
Too long.
Well, you do that because it's just like there's an argument now about should we have Supreme Court justices forever? The purpose of those long contracts were to give them stability and not make them think that you're going to yank their
Yeah,
chain.
see, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Because, honestly, 20 years or whatever you guys give them, too long.
But John, that's the trouble. Things happen, and you look back now and you learn from your mistakes. When they did these things way back, and some of the reasons I remember, some I don't,
Yeah.
but they were set up for various purposes.
Yeah.
If the city had been in charge of the parking authority, okay?
Yeah.
I seriously doubt whether they would have floated the bond issues and had the political courage to charge what's needed.
And that's why authorities are set up in the first place.
Because you know yourself, John, if you build a parking ramp and you're a politician, you don't want to raise the rates up high, right?
If you're a politician, and like when Joyce Savacchio rebuilt the entire sewer system,
Yeah.
she'd have been voted out. I mean, are you kidding me? Taxpayers, that's a buffer.
Yeah.
An authority is created as a buffer between elected officials
Mm-hmm.
and the voting public, to where the elected officials can all sit there and say, it ain't my fault.
Well,
I didn't do that.
I'll give you a chance. I'll give you an example.
Which sometimes is needed, because the public, they don't want to know why, they don't care. All they know is they got a tax increase. We know, Kaz.
Let me ask you a question. I'll give you a good example when I was on the school board of something that really worked positive. What do you think of the Erie Stadium?
What do I think of it?
Yeah.
I think it's pretty nice.
I mean, the turf is nice. It's been replaced regularly, right?
yeah.
Well, the first fiasco was pretty ugly
With the original turf?
when they put it in and it
was a
didn't work.
disaster, yeah.
And everybody was running for cover, right?
Yeah.
And I'll give credit to Jim Barker at the time and the school board. And
Yeah.
we inherited that problem.
Oh, did you?
And we did what we had to do to do it, okay? And what came out of that was there was a realization that it was going to be tough decisions. So we looked at what everybody else did. Cathedral Prep, McDowell, they were all charging for their facilities. We were giving it away practically for nothing.
Right.
Because we wanted to be the good guys.
Yeah.
Same with the pools at Tech and all that, you know.
Yeah.
So what happened was we had two groups. We had the Ainsworth Committee and we had the Stadium Commission.
Stadium Commission.
Well, we tried our best to get Ainsworth to make money, but we lost professional women's softball because they decided they weren't going to play up north.
Yeah.
There was a big boom right after the Olympics. Never worked out, okay? So
Yeah.
that died when the ball club moved downtown, that died.
Yeah.
So he basically had a high school park, and there were some offers like from Denny Brandel to fix it up. Some people didn't want him to do it, you know. But I thought it was a good idea, but so the long thing came out of it was we merged those groups. Then we told them, we're going to stay out of your hair. And we want you to look at the stadium and come up with a plan how to charge people. So you charge people by, like, little gritters wouldn't pay as much as high school.
Yeah.
'Cause people don't know this, but even though the high schools play in there, one way or the other, either through your taxes or through gate receipts, somebody has to pay for that stadium.
Yeah. And then but nowadays,
Yeah.
whenever I drive by the stadium a lot on the weekends,
Yeah.
it's a ghost town.
Well, because what's happened is Prep built a field and the other ones, but when they first did with the turf, the plan was that we would take money, and they did it. They put it into a fund, and they took the Pepsi money that was, you know,
Yeah.
Pepsi was a big, what do you
Their
call it?
sponsor, yeah.
And so every time we sold a Pepsi around the school or at the stadium, they put that money into
Pouring
a
rights.
fund,
Yeah, they had the pouring.
into a sinking fund that, you know, eventually replaced the turf one time.
Yeah.
Okay? So, I mean, when you look at that, we all sat around, we said, you know what? We can't speak about future boards, but we knew we didn't have the appetite to, you know, as a group to do what needed to be done. So we put other people in charge and said, you look at it objectively and you tell us what you think. And they brought advisors on, they looked at it, so they came up with what they thought was a reasonable plan. You know, what people didn't realize about that stadium, and we got to thank Mel Witherspoon for finding it. Because they had one concert there with Bon Jovi,
I was there.
okay? And because they had one pro event there,
Yeah.
they considered Erie to be on the same par with Three Rivers Stadium at the time. So when we paid the electric bill, the turn-on fee, we were treated like a professional facility. And so thanks to Mel Witherspoon, when he was on council, at that time, he talked to his boss and they worked out a deal that said, look, we may have had an occasional event there,
Right.
but we're not like the Erie Sailors or anything. We're not a professional.
Well, it's not even a 10,000 seat stadium.
No, but like I imagined what they call the demand or the surge fee is probably higher for
They should have.
Not Jariet, but UPMC
The
Park,
school district wants to have more events up there. Like,
and they should.
yeah.
Go ahead, caller.
To do it.
Go ahead. You there?
Yeah. 10th and Downing, they're starting to make that new marijuana plant there.
Yeah, you're gonna be a lot of. What do you think about it?
They just started it today. They were supposed to start about a month ago.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of paperwork with the state and everything.
Yeah, they got the plows there and they're clearing the ground and stuff.
You know, long range, that's not going to be they're going to have it somewhere, so why not Erie, you know?
Where's it at, 10th and what?
I think it's on the Harriman site, isn't it, sir?
Yeah, 10th and Downing, right in the corner there.
Oh, that's good. They're using that
Well,
property.
yeah, you know, it's going to be somewhere downstate. You know, we tried to get the first one, and now they're expanding it again, so we got one, and I think,
I think honestly, that's a great use for that property. It's not,
and you know, once they, you know, as they say, once a camel gets his nose under the tent, the hump will follow. They're probably going to legalize pot eventually. And you know what? If that plant grows and it's properly maintained, there'll be more jobs, you know.
Yeah, that's a big space they got there.
and plus it's green.
Yeah.
I mean, no pun intended, but it's a green, it's a health, it's not
Yeah.
it's not a tire plant.
And
that's
you know what?
gonna-
It's going to be monitored pretty heavy. It's not, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a good use of
People
that
got to remember
space.
too, it's not for everybody. It's medicinal right now.
And it's not even smokable, I don't think. You have
It's not supposed to be like the oil or something.
I mean, a lot of people that I've talked to that purchase this oil stuff, they claim that it really has a lot of positive
And
health effects.
not every doctor can prescribe it.
Oh, is that true?
Yeah, you got to have not every pharmacy can
I
dispense it.
think you can go buy it up the street, up by the mall somewhere. I can't remember.
Well, there's one on.
BGD or
There's one, I
something
think,
like that.
there's one down by the West Erie Plaza, I think, too, but.
It helps joints, it helps weight loss, it helps your over.
So you're in favor of it, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I had no problem voting for it because I think, it's going to happen one way or the other and,
If
Did anybody ever check to see why Trader Joe won't come in?
no, but I think, I can't say I know for sure. I was reading about them. They seem to be in bigger towns. And I'm not even sure if Allentown has one. I'll have to check.
Pittsburgh has 3 now.
Yeah, but Trader Joe's is kind of like, what was that old deal with, trying to think, everybody wanted one, and you never could have it, and they were, not Costco, but Trader Joe's is kind of like, they like bigger cities, and it gets into, marketing where they think they can make it. They may come here someday, but
I mean, we got a lot of vacant lots where they can fit right in.
we still keep hearing the rumor about Costco going out to Harbor Creek, and yet I haven't seen,
Now that one they're going to put at Sears. Is that going to be a drive-in?
what's that?
What the heck, Sonic?
Oh, they're going to tear down, according to the news, they're going to tear down the auto shop.
Yeah, but it's supposed to be a drive-in.
Yeah, it is.
I'm going to drive-in in the wintertime.
Yeah, I went there I went down south. They have a lot of them in the south. I was in one in Mississippi. They're nice. They got a good quality product.
They must have some place you could eat inside, though.
I didn't notice because we were in the drive-in, but I would imagine they would. Otherwise, I mean,
Where's that going?
it's going to go where the auto shop was for Sears.
All right, I'll let you
the
go.
mall.
Hey, you're kind of maybe my age. What did they do at the old College Inn or the drive-ins back in the old days? They were a little. Do you remember them?
I remember them.
Did they have them inside? I don't remember.
All the gym was inside, I believe.
College Inn, yeah, they had an outside too, though. Remember?
Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't make sense to have a drive-in.
No, I got to believe they're going to have.
But
What?
I'm just wondering. I haven't been to one.
Well, if you remember when we were young,
Yeah,
the McDonald's didn't have inside eating. Remember?
Yeah, I guess they did.
But I would think I don't know. It'd be interesting. We'll see what they do up there.
You knew Ray Kroc.
No, I didn't.
No, you
Thank you, sir. Not Ray
You went
Kroc.
to McDonald's, you hung around with Ray Kroc.
But we used to have drive-ins. They were a big deal. And the ones down in the South, they do have like young ladies and men to come out, and
Yeah, like in remember?
I think they did have roller
Like
skates.
Arnold's on Happy Days. I missed those. I wish we had some of those.
They got a good product. I mean, I'm not saying it isn't.
What's it called?
Sonic.
Oh, they do outside deliver. They deliver to your car and stuff.
It's a big deal they got where
Oh, really? I've never been to one.
they're just coming up north.
I did hear they were.
There's some in Pittsburgh, I think, but they've never. They're big. They're big in the South because you got the weather all year round.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see like the old days where they have them on roller skates and then they bring the food out to your car, and that would be fun, but
I'll tell you, another good chain that
people
we
get
could
stupid, though.
We get Culver to come here out of the Midwest.
What's it called?
Culver.
Culver?
Culver, yeah, Caulver.
What's that?
Good hamburger place.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, milkshakes are loaded with fat like you shouldn't have.
Oh, that's all I need.
Burgers are great, you know.
That's great. That's more fast food for us.
There you go, but
I think that, Erie's got a lot of good things going on. Did you go down to the Erie Development Corporation party down here?
no, I
the
missed
other
it.
day?
Did you go?
No, I missed it. I went golfing instead. I have my priorities straight. Golf first, because we don't have many.
What I want to
next
see
day.
is I want to get some businesses to start coming into the city.
Yeah, so do I. So what are we going to do about it?
Well, you try, and what I think, and I hope the new mayor did, if I ever get a chance to talk to him, we need a lead person. We got too many agencies out there all going like in helter-skelter.
I thought the city did hire somebody.
Well, I don't know what they're doing. I want to talk to them. Because you know what, if you got all these people that are working like for
Yeah.
the county, they're looking at a win if they get somebody to come into Harbor Creek or Mill Creek.
Yeah.
I'm looking for someone to bring us a win.
I want
In
jobs
town here.
Erie. Who's doing what? What agency's doing this? We can't sit around and
Do you
say,
remember when we were kids, John?
come here, guys. Come expand here.
Do you remember when we were kids?
Yeah.
We got, when LB's came in, we got a couple.
Yeah.
East side, west side, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they went everywhere around it, but we always got it a little bit.
Yeah.
We're not getting that anymore.
I get all that, but we need family sustaining jobs.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Let these guys from the EDC,
But here's what-
we get the
I'll
innovative
tell
district.
you a success story I saw the other day. But it all goes in hand, because if we get businesses to move in the city, it takes the tax burden off a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
And yes, the jobs is something council can't do exactly. That's got to be done on the state, national level.
Yeah.
But I saw an interesting project, and the other day I toured that housing project on 19th Street.
Oh, okay.
You know the one I'm talking
Great,
near
yeah.
Nickel Plate?
What's his name? Crenshaw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of young men of color there,
Yes.
okay? And here we are talking about we can't find them, and I looked around the job site and I'm going, they're doing jobs I wouldn't do,
Well, you
okay?
know how that
You know what I'm
came
talking
about.
about? That's a lot of hard work.
You know how that came about?
What?
They have a program,
What?
Carl,
With-
some of these other guys.
With Brock and all that?
With Reverend Brock
Yep.
and with Erie Insurance and all the other businesses.
And it's working.
And it's a program, it's an apprenticeship for young African-American males.
Right.
Introduces them to the job trades, introduces them to the unions, introducing them to a positive work ethic, and that's a really great
And I
program.
tell you, none of those guys were loafing.
No,
And the owner's kid was out there working, okay?
Grenshaw's?
Yeah, he was out there working, okay? He wasn't with a suit coat and tie, okay? And I looked at that and I said, walking around, and I was touring it, and there was a cornucopia of people there. There was kids from all economic and,
See, what we have to do, Kaz, and they haven't set this up, because I was talking to Jack Lee, you know Jack Lee, the
Yeah.
head of the building trades? I said, Jack, and Frank Petronger, a friend of mine, why aren't you guys working together as a feeder system from the school district?
For sure.
Where you can, introduce these kids
especially
to the
through
trade
tech,
unions.
Well, the old tech,
Yeah, I mean, who hasn't thought of this? I mean, this is like basic stuff. You introduce them to the system at Tech, at Central, or whatever it's called, Erie High now.
Yeah.
You introduce them to the trades. The average tradesperson in the trades unions, 55 years old. The world needs more ditch diggers. The world needs more electricians. The world needs more plumbers, carpenters, because everybody wants to go be a computer college student. The future is that.
And what did the old immigrants do? They went the other way, right? They did what they knew how to do,
Yeah.
and there's no dishonor. Like he was showing me, okay, a kid comes on the job brand new with no experience.
Yeah.
Well, he's probably going to shovel gravel, sweep.
The laborers,
and-
nobody wants to do that anymore. Everybody wants to sit
Yeah, but-
behind the
but
desk and make a Google
But what
will be a
happens? Though,
millionaire tomorrow.
you work out of that job.
Yeah.
Okay, if you hang around the guy and the guy says, "Come here, kid, I want to show you how to do this,"
You know how
right?
much electricians make?
So what do? Then you move on. Maybe you get to be equipment man.
Yeah, you're like, I think you start out, you're an apprentice and then a journeyman or whatever. I don't know. But then you move up the chain and you're making big bucks. I mean,
yeah.
you're making a good living.
It's up to you. If you want to stay there where you are, But if you want to learn how to, like, do the next level, like you say, you want to be an electrician, a plumber.
I think somebody in the labor union starts out $20 an hour with benefits. Now, see what happens is we've got the EDDC doing everything downtown. They got their money pumping. We got the innovative district. They got that money pumping into that. We need to start focusing on the industrial aspect of economic development in this city, because that's where a lot of the people that actually live in the city, with the immigrants, the minorities, that we need to start training. We need to industrial-sized jobs that are family sustaining, where you make 17. I mean, that's not the
Well,
greatest,
when I was on the
but-
school board, I had a fellow director.
Yeah.
He was falling into this thing, everybody has to go to college.
No.
Going, that's not true. I
No,
said, look.
not anymore.
There are some kids that, I'm not saying they just, high math and all that is not their baby, and, they like working with their hands. And guess what? Some people have proven over the years that, you can do things like paint and all that.
We need some form of a community college.
We do.
Some form.
But it's
We
got to
need
be,
train
the
these
only way
guys.
I would go for it, John, and I told you this, is if it addresses needs in the community.
Well, it has to. You have to. What you do.
I
is
don't
you-
want another one to train bookkeepers.
No.
I
What
want
you
one
do-
like in the South where they say,
What you do is you
"Here's
get
what we're
somebody
looking
from the
for."
manufacturing society, somebody from this sector, somebody from the plastics industry, somebody from the innovative district. You bring all those people to the table and say, what do we need? Where does the future go? Then you develop your programs around the needs of these people.
Well,
in
other
the
communities,
community.
what they do in North Carolina, everybody says, oh, North Carolina. What they do is they find out what company is knocking at their door. And the company will send out feelers saying, we're thinking about coming here, but here's what we need. So, like the other day you read about, welders working on these ships over here. That's a specific type of skill.
Yeah.
Not everybody has a port like we do.
No, you need welding, you need
Yeah.
all these.
So,
I'm a
if you
I'm a
don't-
I'm a product of a community college, basically. In high school, my grades were not that great. I wasn't the greatest student.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought I was going to go to college. Mercyhurst College set up this program. So I was encouraged to attend this program. I attended this program, took business courses, business classes.
Yeah.
Then I realized, holy cow, I can function in college and I can do this. So what happened was I used that and it fed me right into Gannon, where I went, I got my bachelor's degree
Yeah.
from Gannon, and, it's like a 2-year from Mercyhurst. I would have never done that if it wasn't for this community college.
See,
It introduces you to it's like for the, not everybody's an A student, especially in the Erie School District. Not everybody's an A, B, some of them don't even habla inglés.
Yeah.
So we have to teach them something. There has to be some type of skill. No company is going to move here if you don't have a workforce. If I was a business owner, I want to know what the education is, what are the training, how many workers do I have? Those are the top. Whenever, I told you before, whenever someone talks about moving a company or moving a family, education is the number one thing. The number one thing that any company, especially companies from across seas,
Yeah.
they move here, they want to know what's the education. You have to have these industrial-sized jobs. Because if you have family-sustaining jobs, that's how you attack some of these other problems, like blight. You can't fight blight if you don't have money to put into your house. The city, when I did the Weed and Seed program, we had this thing called the Home Program, where you would match your grant, and then the city and the Weed and Seed, you'd get matching, and they still do it, some of these other, you match the grant, and you put the money into your house. That's how you fight blight. But nobody has the, $5,000 to put into their house because there's no jobs.
Well,
you can't fight those houses on the east side by Hammermill, Kaz, those neighborhoods were really nice. The Lower East Side, out there by Hammermill, all the way up to 26th Street, those houses were nice. And with GE closing up, the house is up by, up above 38th Street in the 5th Ward,
Yeah.
way up in the nice area. You're starting to see a lot of for sale signs on them.
Well, yeah, you are.
So, I mean, we have to refocus the downtown, great. EDDC, do your thing.
Hey, I was there when,
Innovative, do your thing.
I was there when, I couldn't believe it, kids are still trying to get jobs from that site on 19th Street,
Which one?
Crenshaw's site.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, they got to go through the labor unions to get those.
Well, he was telling me kids are coming, they want to work.
Listen.
So what does that tell you?
Hey, listen,
What does that tell you, John,
There's
right?
a misnomer. I used to work with troubled kids, minorities mostly.
Yeah.
It was called the Summer Earn and Learn Program, where if they had community service, they owed restitution, or they were on probation, they were on paper for doing, minor crimes. And they would come and work, and we had POs and we had counselors that would go to the job sites with them and supervise them. These kids work. I mean, there's a misnomer that kids don't want to work.
I think it's a lot.
Some don't.
What you said earlier, I was up, I got to meet with Brock, okay?
Yeah.
I keep promising him, and I have been there a couple times.
Yeah.
And I've seen a little bit. He's demanding,
I'll tell you how.
But what works is that, he has a chance to weed them out to where,
Yeah.
somebody's got to get into people's heads that you're expected to go to work, you're expected to, they don't want excuses,
It's the cycle of poverty. If mom and dad aren't working and they're relying on the system and they're sleeping till noon, they may be out drinking, smoking weed, whatever. As a child growing up, that's how the cycle of poverty continues. You're not used to seeing somebody get up for work and dress for work, come home, I'm so tired, let's have dinner.
I can remember, John, I got out of high school, and I figured, well, I got a couple months till I start college.
Yeah.
I figured, boy, this is going to be fun.
5 minutes.
It wasn't. My dad come up to me.
Yeah.
Hey, I got a job for you, right?
Yeah.
He did. He found me one.
Yeah. Back in the days when there were some.
Well, I mean, everybody got, people worked either construction or you worked for various government agencies hired you,
Hey, let me ask you a question. Are you guys passing an anti-alcohol ordinance in parks or something like that?
That rumor's going around, but
Have you guys even discussed
no,
that matter?
no.
I tell you, last Monday, I was outside. I was
Yeah.
on the phone. So I was parked over here by Perry Square. Something needs to be done.
Pardon?
But it was just not good. The stuff that was going on in the park.
I would tell you this, that my first inclination, John,
Yeah.
when I found out, and I don't know how true it is, they say, I don't know if it's that urban legend like we have the best sunsets, but they claim that there's only 3 cities that have what we do, open container,
Yeah.
and that's Vegas, New Orleans, and us. And
You guys have, no, what is the open container law? So I
what it means, you can walk down the street with a beer.
walk down with some hooch and just sip away?
Well, look what we have. You have no problem during Celebrate Erie.
Yeah.
I mean, you contain it inside that little area, but
Yeah.
basically there's, you can't be, if that's your beer and there's no, I don't know how it works with PLCB, but basically if you're walking down the street with a beer and it's your own beer, we don't have you try that in other towns, right?
Yeah.
And they will tell you what, put it away.
Yeah. I was sitting outside.
Because you've been to the Peninsula, right?
Yeah.
You can't have beer there. So I think, John, personally, I think it's time we look at it.
I was sitting there watching and observing about what was going on. I was on the phone. And I'm sitting and I'm looking at what was going on over there by the fountain and people sitting over there.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, man.
My question to you is, and you've been around, I have, right?
Yeah.
I go to Chicago and there are all these big, do you really need to walk down the street with a beer?
No.
I mean, give me a reason why, okay?
It's a quality of, if you're gonna invest millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars into the downtown area, you have to make it not family friendly, but socially respectful. You can't have bums and drunks and drug addicts walking around where you're trying to invest millions and millions and millions of dollars. As much as I believe me, my current job, I know what's going on up there. I see people that I know, and I'm telling you, something needs to be done because.
Look, I'm not a teetotaler, but.
A what?
Not a teetotaler, right?
What's that mean?
It means I've had a few drinks in my time.
Oh, yeah, I mean.
We all have, okay?
Yeah.
So it's not about, I'm one of these people that are against alcohol, but.
No.
When you can't have a situation where, and you know what happens, you have a couple beers and all of a sudden, your mouth is writing checks that you can't back up, right?
Yeah.
And you've seen it at football games and everything, right?
It's not only beer, though, that the problem's down there. It's not only beer.
No, it's not, but look what they do in the arenas now. They shut off beer sales in the fourth period for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Because people
Get
just.
drunk and stupid.
Look, I can't judge whether you're a good guy or a bad guy.
Yeah.
But if you're walking around, I'm thinking, if you got people drinking freely,
Yeah.
you got a lot of problems that
I
could
mean,
be there.
if you're gonna,
And like you say, it's not only that, it's the other stuff.
yeah, if you're gonna put an order, you have to like enforce it.
I think we got to talk with the DID and with the owners and say, look, we want to be respectful. We've given you the right to have these, what do you call it? The seats on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
But enough's enough, okay?
Yeah.
You don't need to be walking from bar to bar with a can in your hand. I remember I was in Virginia Beach, and I was a young soldier then. And we came out, we were going to carry the can, and the guy goes, hey, who? Put the can in the, we said, we're not done yet. He goes, you are now if you're leaving here.
That
you know.
place on State Street where they just sell single cans of beer.
Yeah.
I see them, in and out, and they just go from there to
Yeah,
here.
Mel Witherspoon don't like that one.
I don't like it either, to be honest with you. I think it's just, if your downtown is going to be about business, with nobody fixed up the Boston store. Nobody built the Richford Arms. Nobody built these other places for like Section 8 housing. I'm not saying that we don't need them down there and they don't serve a purpose, because they do.
But-
there's people that need
But
help.
drink your beer in your own office.
But these people that are hanging out in the park,
Yeah.
do it at home. Do it at your apartment. Some are homeless, and I feel sorry for them, and we need to help them. We do.
Yes, we do,
But there has to be some type of a medium
And
reach.
it's not only them, it's like, if you watch during St. Patrick's Day,
Yeah,
it's a big joke.
yeah,
Erie's a party town, and they,
yeah,
if that's what you want, fine, but you know what?
yeah.
I've never seen in any other town on an everyday basis,
Yeah.
but, hey, John,
Cass, thanks for having me.
before we go, I just want to say that, to tell John, the other John,
Yeah.
that was a grant we applied for, so when you disseminate funds out of a grant, it has to come before us.
Right.
So, that's already been, the money has already been,
Who's it through?
it didn't say it, I can check on it. But it's, we get them through, there's a lot of federal programs and grants.
I know maybe it's HUD or whatever, but who applied for it? The
Could
city,
be
the
anybody.
police, the
I'll check into
Unified
it.
Erie?
I'll check into it exactly
Something-
who got it.
Something to talk about next week.
Yeah, because, it's not bad. I mean,
No, it's
there are
not.
grants out there all the time that
You
people,
have- Yeah, you have to.
people get mad at us when we apply for a
Hey,
grant to
that's-
fix the park.
That's one thing that this administration does, that the other administration,
Yeah.
they go after grants.
Hey, if we got a grant to fix the park,
Yeah,
why not take it? They're gonna ship that to, look, if your argument is that we spend too much money,
Yeah.
Government does, then that's fine, but, until,
if the money doesn't come here, it's gonna go somewhere
and
else.
until Harrisburg and DC close up
We
their
don't
loopholes.
even get our share as it is, but we didn't,
Well, we don't,
but we are now.
we
thank God.
get the drippings from the feds and the state.
Yeah.
So if you got a problem, you got a problem with them, okay?
DCED used to call here and say, where's the grants? Where are they? We told you. You're a preferred, and we never sent them. But guess what? At least we do now. I don't know, who's the
The
grant,
master was Lou Tullio. He was
who's the
always
grant
getting
guy that we
grants,
have now? Who's in charge of
I thought it was a young lady. I got to get her name.
yeah, it
You know,
wasn't her, but it wasn't her. It was, what's her name? That's gone.
Lou was the master of grants. In the old days?
The master of grants. That's,
Yeah, we got grants all the time.
that's because he knew how to play the game. But
Well, you got to. If the money's out there, if you
Yeah.
go to college, what do you tell your kids? Apply for scholarships.
you have, it's like throw as much out there as you can, and hopefully one or two things stick.
Well, as long as they're throwing, I'm grabbing.
Hey, well, at
As
least
long as
we-
it doesn't do
At
something.
least we're throwing them now. All right, I'm out of here.
Hey, we can see you next week, hopefully.
Probably.
This is a good, we get off on the track, so it's a reminder to our audience, they gotta, if they want to stop us.
Yeah, if
just-
they want to call and tell us, shut up and let us talk, we'll
yeah.
do that.
I get a lot of comments off the air.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, good ones.
Oh,
but-
good ones? Okay, good.
Oop.
Once that submarine sound goes off, that
There's
means
that, yep, there's that sound
you
again.
better get home. All right, hit the music. Kaz has got to go. He's late for dinner.
Not me.
No? You late for lunch?
Yeah.
Yeah, you better get going.
Coming to you live on the Government Access Channel from Mario Bagnoni Chambers in beautiful downtown Erie. It's the Taxpayers Hotline Show with your host, Kaz Kwiatkowski.
I thought we were supposed to have you on there. Hey, hang on, what's up, man?